Morning.
Good morning. I'm in Louisiana at the Sign Oak Plantation with Hannah.
Morning.
Gonna be listening in.
Good morning, everybody.
Abe.
Morning.
Hi, Alexa.
Morning, Abe. Barbara.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good
Another-
morning.
Another wonderful real estate day.
Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody.
Hey, happy Rob.
Yes, I can be getting my stand.
All right, who's had any good deals lately?
What was your question?
Who's had a good sale lately, I guess is my question.
Nicole had a good one. Got full price, right? That one went quick.
2 days.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's always fun when you're right in the pocket and you get a full price offer and they offer to pay title.
Wow.
Yeah, I was excited about that. Excited for my sellers.
We see Gainesville rocking and rolling. How are you, Robert?
Very well, thank you. Yes, I had something close to campus just sold a few days ago and not full price, but close. And, it's a 525 number. So that's a pretty good broker's fee. So happy to see that one.
All right.
Fantastic.
Congrats.
Market's so strong. We see so many files coming through the email right now. Unbelievable, Gainesville
I
market.
just had one in St. Louis and my buyers 12 contracts we won, and
Congrats, Janet.
it's closing in the middle of this month, but it was for $1 million,
Wow.
$1,050,000, and I've got to pay a 42% referral fee to Altar relocation. 42%.
Ouch.
That's there was no negotiating it at all. I tried.
Well, the wins, you beat out 12 contracts, so.
It was. I went to bed thinking, no effing, no way. Sorry. No way. And I woke up and got the call. So it was like, happy day.
For the win. Awesome.
Yeah. But just think of all the referral business they're going to be sending you. I mean, that's going to be some good numbers.
I hope so. They said so, but you know how that goes. I don't know.
So Janet, what the good about the paying a 45% referral fee is it teaches us the value of self-generation, right? In other words, it clearly defines like what the expense is in the whole process of generating the lead. Right? Because if you're willing,
the corker of it is that he went to school with my son, so I had him all along, but there was no getting out of paying that referral fee. They were not. They said if I argued, it would jeopardize his benefits. So I kept my mouth shut. Yep.
So that's why we're on to the next step, which is kind of self-generation, the mindset of objection handling. What does objection handling mean to anybody here? Like if I say that word, what does that mean?
Opportunity to show my value.
Opportunity to show your value. Okay. Anybody else have any definitions before?
Overcoming an obstacle.
Overcoming an obstacle, right? So I want to start with a definition of what selling is. All right. And selling is the process of getting a client intellectually committed to a future result that is genuinely good for them, and then help them emotionally commit to take the action to get that result. Okay. It's a lot of words, but selling is a process of getting a client intellectually committed to a future result that is good for them. Does that make sense to everybody? And then helping them emotionally commit to the actions that will get that result, right? Because it's frustrating when you know what somebody should do and it's clear as day to us, but then they don't take the right action to get the outcome. Does that make sense? Notice there's nothing in there, Robert. There's nothing in there about manipulation, tricking, anything like that, right? It's about getting them to do what's right for themselves and then getting them emotionally prepared to take the steps to achieve that outcome. Okay. And part of that is being able to address objections or maybe even proactively address objections that may come. Do you think that it's easier to address an objection if you hit it before it comes than waiting for it to come to you?
Yes.
Right. I mean, the classic one that I still can't figure out how to solve for this one is if you don't set the stage about how important pricing is, and Robert, you're in the right corner of my Hollywood Square, so I might be picking on you unless you don't want to be picked on. But did you ever have a customer where you got them to price it right, Robert, and it sells quickly, and then they might come to you and say, "Yeah, I think we underpriced it. We might have left money on the table." Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah, it's happened a few times. I mean, I think you just have to reiterate the fact that hey, we went through the comps, and this is the number we came up with, and if you want to pay me more because I did such a wonderful job, I'm happy with you.
Okay. And now, do you think though that I'm going to ask this like candidly? Do you think sometimes, like, no matter what you say, that people have a doubt in their head that they might have left money on the table when that experience happens? And this is the quintessential case for sharing with them at the onset and saying that, look, there's, and this is my opinion, it's not meaning it's right, but there are three unique strategies that you can deploy when you look to sell your house. Robert, has anyone taken the time to share with you those three strategies? And if you asked 100 buyers in today's market, how many people do you think that are in the market to list or sell know the three strategies? Probably none, right? And if I say, has anyone taken the time, Nicole, to share with you the three strategies that you can use when launching your home onto the market? You're going to get 100% of people saying, no, nobody's taking the time. And doesn't that seem like you're above and beyond when you're like, well, I'll take the time to share with you the three strategies. And would you like to understand how those three strategies work before you pick one? Like how other sellers in Gainesville fared using those three strategies, right? And we all know that the properties that sell quickly get the highest price. It's undeniable. It's like the law of gravity. But if you skip that step and then they go and you put it on the market, they just listen to you because they never asked the question, and you put it on at 500 and they were thinking, well, what can we try 550? You're like, no, you're better off at 500. You get more activity. Then it goes under market like that. And they're like thinking to you, Robert, maybe we should increase the price. And I've seen examples on the MLS where people have gotten multiple offers early on and they've actually raised the price and then it just sat and died. Have you ever seen that? Right.
Mhm.
And have you ever had a client that rejects an early on price? Like, oh, this is too soon. Let's see if we get a better offer. Has anybody ever seen that happen?
Yes.
And how does that normally work out? I see you shook your head, Jason. Robert, how does that work out if they get a really good offer early on and they get greedy and they say, you know what, let's see what else comes in?
Typically not good.
It sits.
Quick story. Literally just had this home on the market for 90 days. And in this market, you're probably going to see something at or near full price with closing cost concessions. Wrote an offer, 10,000 below list with 10,000 in closing costs. They came back and said, we want a full price offer and we want the buyer to pay half of our closing costs. It's still on the market.
Wait, they want the buyer to pay half of the seller's closing costs?
Correct.
Oh, that's interesting.
They wanted to split title and split all that fee with no concessions.
So that was a poor listing agent, Jason. Poor example of a selling agent. So and Robert, what I'm saying to you is that when you do a great job and it happens quickly and you're like expecting a pat on the back, is it possible the seller can come and say, boy, I think we might have left money on the table if you don't set the expectation or rest that objection before it happens?
Yeah, it's always a good point to cover those issues. It doesn't happen a lot. I think a lot of times it does happen. It's happened to me a few times, but for the most part, I think people are happy that hey, the house is sold and we're off to New York.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna share with everybody just I don't know if Janine is on the phone or she's preparing for her listing appointment, but I did this with her in about 40 minutes last night. And this is what I would call part of my troubleshooting. So this was a analysis from literally just yesterday, and I'm gonna role play this. Hey, Robert, if we decide to work together, I took all the sales in Monroe between $1 million and $1.5 million, and I just wanted to share with you how how pricing influences the sales price. So for the people who had listed the properties, a little bit below market, we call that auction strategy. The average list price was 1.18, and the average sales price was nearly 1.225 million for nearly 4% premium, and they sold an average of 16 days. The second group priced it at the perceived market value. We're looking at the comps, and those people put it on at 1.245, and they sold it for barely over 1.2 for a 4.5 or a 3.5% discount, and it took them 43 days. And the third bunch were people who are suggesting what you had just mentioned is let's try it a little bit higher. They went just another 20. They went $45,000 higher than the first group, and they wound up selling it for $28,000 less, spending 43 days on the market and selling it for, spending 105 days on the market and selling it for a 6% discount. And I'm just curious, Robert, if we decided to work together, which of these three categories would you like to be in?
We'd like to get the most and as fast a sale as possible.
Okay. So now when I set the stage like this, Robert, when you get an offer early on, you're no longer thinking that you left money on the table. You're like, boy, I'm glad I wasn't that fool that tried to overprice it.
Correct.
Does that make sense? And I've not been able to figure out how to explain it after the fact, right? Because it just sounds like I'm making excuses, right? Because you did a great job, you got them multiple offers, and they're thinking they left money on the table. I haven't found a way to reconcile that expectation to reality unless you do it ahead of time, right? So,
Yes.
the result that's good for them is selling it quickly, right? And getting them intellectually and emotionally engaged and taking the right action is getting them to price it correctly, right? And I also call this the illusion of choice. And you know why I call it the illusion of choice? Anybody? Because I give them three options. Hey, would you like to introduce your home to the market at perceived market value? Would you like to try to win the lottery, or would you like to price it auction style where you get paid a premium? Which do you feel is right for you, Robert?
Oh, well, I guess get it priced right and get it sold.
Get a premium, right? And I also have taken the time to understand, buyer psychology and seller psychology, and the psychology of a seller. And if you could just, let yourself think openly here. Most of us come to a listing opportunity with what? What do you bring? Nearly everybody brings what?
Paper
Starts with a C, ends with an A. What's that called?
commission agreement.
CMA.
CMA, right? And what do you do in a CMA? You compare other properties, right? And you say, hey, based on these properties, I think your home is worth, $1.2 million or 520,000, correct? Mm-hmm. And with this experienced group, what do most sellers say when you say, based upon the comps, it looks like your home, Robert's worth 520? What do you think most sellers say?
They start saying the things in their home that are better, or start finding value in things that actually don't contribute value.
Or they might even say, Nicole, we were hoping for, 575 to 599, right? That they'll put a higher number out there because they're not rational, right? They're emotionally connected to the value of their home.
Sure.
Or they believe the first negotiation starts with us. You think those two things could be true, right? So a good agent, a solid agent, if the seller says, I was hoping for 575 to 599, and you're saying the comps show that it's 520 to 525. A good agent, not a great. Where do you think that property comes out listed as?
599, the highest.
You think 599? Janet, what do you think? You think that a good agent goes and takes their price, or they try to, ration with them? What do you think?
I think we negotiate. At least I do. I'll tell the seller, like, when you were talking about the lottery system, I call that the PFA method, pluck from air. That you can pluck from air, you can do this, you can do this. And, it's totally your decision, and you're in charge of the condition and the price. So when we get comments on those things back as feedback, you're in charge of those items and I'm in charge of the marketing. So when those items come back in the feedback is negative.
So Janet, can I have permission to be critical and we still be friends?
No.
Okay. I'll talk to everybody else.
Okay.
So the statement I heard from Janet was, I tell them or I explain to them. right? And that's our nature, right? We want to explain to them, we want to tell them. What do you think we really should be doing?
Advising.
I think everyone's a chameleon. I mean, I'm not always as warm and fuzzy with you guys as I am with my clients. You know,
Dennis, and I'm not.
We should be teaching and educating.
Teaching. So this is something I talk about a lot, and I really want you to think about it. We need to ask questions so that they can self-discover, right? If you ask, like when we try to explain, all we're doing is like we're pushing and they're pushing back harder, right? And my experience, of overseeing like literally thousands of agents now in my career is most agents in that environment will go there and say, well, you're thinking 575 to 599. That's a little bit aggressive. We're probably not going to get offers. And they'd be happy to get it at 550 to 560 and walk out the door, come to the office and brag to Nicole Bennett, hey, that jerk over there, Robert, wanted to get 599 for this. I got him down to 550. And you look at that agent and say, but it's only worth 520, right? You're going to limit your activity, and it's going to sit on the market, right? So when you have that seller that says, hey, I was hoping 575, 599, they're probably trying to set you up so that you listed at 575, in my opinion, right? And you feel good that you got them down to 575. But I would ask the question, Nicole, what would happen if we put it on at 575 and we don't, you put it on with the best possible agent in Gainesville at 575 and you don't get an acceptable offer? How long are you going to wait?
30 days, probably.
30 days. And then what would you do?
Lower it.
For what?
550. I like to encourage my sellers to go big one chunk, so as much as they'll go, but at least $10,000 to $20,000.
So let's just say that let's say that they run at 575. They say we'll go to 549 after 30 days or after 3 weeks.
And then someone comes in and gives them that, but then asks for concessions, and there's a stigma, right? Like then you lost that time on the market, and it looks like there's a drop in the visibility, or the impression is there's something wrong with it.
Right. So you're going down the right rabbit hole, but I think if we can do that in the context of asking questions. So I would say, Nicole, so if you hired the best agent, and I like to put it out of myself so that they can't bring me into the equation. You hire the best possible agent with the best marketing, the best photography. It's on the market for 30 days. No acceptable offers. You lower the price from 575 to 549. Now somebody comes and looks at it. They spend half an hour in the house. They leave, and you see on your Ring doorbell camera, the agent says, hey, what do you think of that property? And they say, we're going to go home and discuss it. We'll probably get back to you with an offer tomorrow. Now, Nicole, when they go home and discuss it, what does that conversation sound like after the home's been on the market for 33 days? 3 days ago, we cut the price $21,000, and they go home to discuss it. What does that conversation sound like?
They're going to say, well, it's been on the market for 30 days, and let's come in lower, because there's, like I said, a stigma or element of like desperation with the price drop, where they can turn probably.
So you think that in that circumstance where you lower the price by 26,000, the buyer is going to say, boy, I smell blood in the water, and right. I feel like I can negotiate. And
sure.
Let me ask you something else. What would happen? What else might a buyer think if they see it's been on the market for 33 days and it had a $25,000 or $26,000 price cut?
Maybe there's something wrong with it.
Maybe there's something wrong with it. And is that going to help or hurt you in negotiating the best full value for your home?
Hurt.
Now, what I've done, Robert, is I've done the same thing about explaining to them, but I've done it in a way where I'm questioning it, the homeowner, and getting them to answer the questions, right? And then I would say, Nicole, how would you feel if alternatively you took the best possible agent to list your property, you put it on at 519, and it sold for 535 in the first week with multiple offers? How would you feel about that?
Excellent.
Now, if we decided that we're a good fit to work together, which strategy do you think would work for you?
Coming in lower and getting.
We call that the auction strategy. You think that would be right for you?
Yes.
Now, does anybody see the difference between like trying to explain it to them versus asking the questions in the sales process? And see, Sam, you had a question, right?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. So everything you're saying about your talk about, I apologize, my brain today this morning, there's a lot on my mind. So everything you're talking about is on point with not only what I'm seeing, but also what I'm experiencing from my listing I had at St. Anne when we talked about last time. But there's a property I'm interested in myself, and the listing agent there, I had the same dilemma because they've had it for sale for 2 years now. It has not moved. It is way overpriced. But if you look about a year ago, they had it priced less than now. And even for 7 months at that lower price, it still didn't sell yet. They raised it. So I was trying to explain to him, like, sir, this is not right, pretty much. And you're talking about handling objections and how to address this appropriately. How can I even address that with a peer, or a competitor when they're not even seeing that the sun is yellow? Like, it doesn't like. Do you have advice for that? Because this is exactly on point with what you're talking about.
But instead of a buyer, an agent that, it was even hard for me when I was talking to Rob to just sit and answer. Like, I want to talk more than ask the questions. But there is power, like you said. Is it the power of suggestion, where basically you give them the answer, you give them the options, but you're giving them the best answer, and you let them say that so they came to that conclusion versus you telling it to them. So what do you think, Rob, for a fellow agent? What would you?
So I think it's a fundamental shift in the way that we think. Okay, because everybody's thought process is to say, wait a second, no, Nicole, that's going to be bad. Because here's what's going to happen, right? You touch the hot stove, you get burned, right? So you're gonna try to explain it, and then they're going to continue to push back and say, with the puppy eyes, can we just try it, right? Or even sometimes even worse, where you have a client that maybe has worked with you in the past, right? They trust you imminently, and you don't go through the options, and then they get an offer the first week, and they're like, Robert, I knew we were giving it away. I really thought we should have went at 550, and you recommended 520. I think we left money on the table, right? And you've done a great job, but what's happening is because of the poor communication, the seller doesn't recognize the value that you have. And if you have to explain it, you've already lost, right? If you're talking and explaining, you've already lost the battle. So Sam, for your scenario where somebody's like raised the price and it hasn't sold, right? Again, I would probably probe the listing agent with some questions, right? And kind of make them ponder what the hell is going on there.
Rob, I had a question to break in there. I can ask Sam. It's something you want to purchase, is what I heard. Have you actually made an offer, an in writing contract, or you just been back and forth with the sales agent?
It's out in Cuba, so it's a bit far from St. Louis, but I can handle the drive. I drove out there twice, and it's the thing is this is the guy tried telling me, here's the excuse he gave me. He's like, well, the way we had it listed before, we didn't have it listed with all the acreage, so we actually added more acreage, when really that's not the case. They just had it listed with two MLSs. The numbers still came out the same, so they didn't change anything. It was the illusion of change. So nothing really changed. But yeah, no, I'm going to probably within 2 weeks, I'm going to just throw an offer, but I haven't done it yet, and go from there.
Let me throw that out as well, because over my years in the business, many times you run up against a listing agent that they've got one listing, and the last thing they want to do is have it sold, because otherwise they would be listless. So you definitely want to put that on paper, and I think even to the point where you'd want to, and I would assume that they haven't had any other contracts or offers. So, something on paper, and maybe even a little bit of a analysis as to where the numbers are. I mean, so many times you run up against sales agents that are just like a brick wall, and it's, maybe it's a friend of a friend for 30 years, and they're not going to fire the listing agent, but at the same point in time, the listing agent's not doing their job. So that would be my only suggestion, Sam.
He told me he's lived in Cuba his whole life, and I don't know what I'm talking about. So I said, okay, thank you.
So
you got to be aggressive. And one of the things I always said is, I'd rather turn you down now than let you down later. And don't let someone become a priority in your life when you're just an option in theirs. Keep that in mind.
So thanks, Abe. Sam, I I would also go back to the asking questions. I would say, hey, I'm just curious. I see it was on for 479 before. Now it's 540. What's changed at acreage? I see it's 47 days on the market now. Have you had many offers? Hey, I'm just curious, Sam. What would happen if somebody came in with an offer of 470, 4,000 below your prior sales price? What do you think the seller would do? And then you wait. And crazy be crazy. So it doesn't mean it's going to work, but I would ask questions and submit the offer. So moving on to making my point about asking questions is really the best way. It supersedes trying to explain somebody, in my opinion, 100% of the time. And it also prevents somebody from coming to us and feeling like they left money on the table. Because is that client really going to feel it was a fulfilling first-rate experience if there's a doubt in their mind that they might have left money on the table? Probably not, right? But if you explain to them what the goal was and you said, hey, Robert, which of these three categories would you like to be in when, if we decided to work together, right? I'd like to sell it quickly so I can get over ask price and get full value. Great. Just wanted to make sure. Then when that scenario comes and they get 3 offers in the first week, you can say, congratulations, you're a genius. You picked the right choice, right? I'm making you feel good. MMFI. You remember what that is? Robert, you remember that one? MMFI? You're on mute.
Make me feel important.
You're a ventriloquist, Robert. But Jason, yes.
I can see that's what he was saying. I was trying to help him out.
Is that what you were saying, Robert? You're still on mute.
I can't interpret all of that. I have no idea what he just said. He was speaking too fast.
But yes, Jason, good call.
There he goes. He's off mute now.
Yeah, I was on mute, so sorry. Yeah, that's exactly right, Jason. Thank you very much.
So in sales, confident, not arrogant, collaborative, consultative, and always in control, right? Nobody's going to follow somebody who's not in control. And it doesn't mean you need to be arrogant. You can still be in control and make the call feel important, right? There's an intersection of that. Whoever asked the question is the person in control, and doesn't mean to be arrogantly in control. Another excellent question. And I mean, I'll bet you we could be on here for 2 hours if I said, can you share with me some of the stupid things we've heard in a listing appointment, right? Everybody probably has a list of 10 of them. I'm going to give you a blanket suggestion that when people say things that make absolutely no sense because they're not in our industry, this is the great phrase to say. Jason, that's really interesting. Why would you say that? And think about any crazy question or any crazy suggestion that you were to respond with. That's really interesting. Why would you say that? You just basically take the burden of defense off of you and you put it back on their shoulders in the most polite way. And it's demonstrating absolute control. And maybe there is a valid reason why they're saying that. Or maybe that leads to another question, right? And another great key phrase or pivot phrase. And I would write these things down. Okay. One is, that's interesting. Why would you say that? And another great phrase is, hey, Nicole, has anyone taken the time to blank, right? Because if I say, has anyone taken the time to share with you the impact of mispricing your home? They're going to say no. Has anyone taken the time to share with you the 3 distinct strategies? Has anyone taken the time? And you're fishing for a no so that you can make it seem like nobody else really cared. Has anyone cared enough to take the time to share with you this? That's big MMFI stuff, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And the third piece I want to reiterate is, if you want a better answer, ask a better question. If you want a better answer, ask a better question. Can anybody think of a circumstance or an instance recently where perhaps you did ask a better question, or maybe if you could have a do-over, you might change your approach and ask a different question and a better question?
Yeah, I've done that at an open house recently, and I think I lost an opportunity because I could have done better, and I caught it after the fact, but it's too late at that point.
Okay. Do you remember the circumstance specifically, or?
Yeah, they were the issue was there was a foundation issue. They were the customer, because they're not a client at this point, was claiming there's a foundation issue it wasn't my listing, it was my peer's listing, and I was assisting. And the way they were talking, it was an objection that I could have addressed appropriately, where it could have made them still interested in making an offer. But because my answer was poor about the foundation, this says that some post was missing or something like that, and that's why there was settlement there. And they gave me some story. If I had a better response and better question to it, I think we could have diverted from that, and they still could have been interested in making an offer because they told me it checks all the boxes but this. So I dropped the ball and lost the potential sale because of that. So it's I kicked myself about. I called Dave right away. I'm like, oh, I screwed up. So, but that's a learning opportunity.
Okay. Anybody else before I kind of go into my next group here? I know you're all very active, and you maybe have something that you could have answered differently. Going once, going twice, we're on the next one. So, how about like some objections that we get regularly? Does anybody? How do you address when I'm going to interview 3 people, so I just want to know before you come out here, don't be asking for the listing. I'm interviewing 3 people. Does anybody ever have a client that's transparent and tells you that?
Or that they're not going to make a decision today.
They're not going to make a decision. Yeah, hey, we're just thinking about it. We're probably going to do it in the next 30 to 60 days, so we don't want you to be really pushy and force us to make a decision today.
A couple of weeks ago, exact scenario.
I'm sorry?
A couple of weeks ago, I had the exact scenario. I'm interviewing 3 other people.
And all right.
Or they're going to say that they're going to interview a few more agents.
Yeah.
So Ron, I'm gonna give you a very important distinction. If somebody says that to you from the onset, or if they say that during the process, it has a different meaning. And if they say it during the process, say, hey, are you ready to put this on the market with us? And they say, no, we want to interview a couple more agents. What do you think that really means if that's not discovered during the process? Ron, repeat that.
You haven't sold them on you.
You haven't demonstrated enough value.
Right.
Okay. So I would agree 100%. And I've had this circumstance, and I wish Amy or some of the other or Joe Garcia were on this call, because we've been out there where people have blatantly said, hey, just want to let you know that we're interviewing 3 people and we're not going to list today. And we come out with the listing. And it's not because I was pushy and manipulating them to do it. It's just like it became the natural step in the conversation, right? To decide to work together, right? And there are different ways that you can say, are you ready to sign the listing agreement? Are you ready to sign the contract? To me, sounds a little bit intimidating. But if I say, hey, Robert, do you feel comfortable, starting a relationship today and deciding to work together, or is there any other questions? We have to read his lips again, but if you can see, I'm not asking you to sign a contract. I'm saying, hey, Jason, do you feel comfortable that we're on the same page to work together? So what date do you want to launch the listing?
That's
What
the
date do you want to
line.
launch the
That's your line that I always liked. Are you ready to start? Do you want to do the open house on this coming Sunday?
Or the following Sunday?
Yeah, exactly. Just to get them right alongside with you
Right.
before they move anywhere else.
And Ron, when people tell you up front, like before you come out, that I'm interviewing 3 people, right? I totally believe that they intend to interview 3 people, but I think if they see the solution, that they're going to say, hey, I made a decision. I want to work with you. I don't want to be confused and complicated. And unfortunately, sometimes I believe if somebody during the process says, hey, we need to talk to more people, it's a signal that perhaps we didn't do a good enough job of explaining it. And I would say, as a consumer, I'm a lot like you, Ron. I always want to make sure that I explore all my options. Before I leave, may I ask you, are there any questions that you have that I haven't addressed, right? So you might think that I'm asking you to ask me questions, but I'm still asking the question, right? Are there any questions that I haven't addressed, right? And I know that you and your wife are really intelligent consumers, and that's what I like about you. And I want to make sure that I give you all the information to make the right choice. So I would keep going with those questions, and to me, that would be a delaying tactic. How about if you have a seller, when you're talking about strategy, They either are giving you an objection before listing it, or they're giving you an objection along the process. And I'll call this the folded arms. Hey, I'm in no hurry to sell my house. I'm not going to give it away, Jason. Right?
Yeah.
You either hear people say that, or you can hear them say that in their body language. Is that true? And what does it really mean when they're saying that, either body language or verbally? I'm in no hurry. I'm not going to give it away.
Well, usually for me, it means that I hadn't asked enough questions up front, because I usually cover that in the first 5 minutes I'm in the door.
So and maybe I'm not even asking the question clearly too, but what I interpret when somebody says I'm not going to give it away is that they're not desperate to sell their house. However, they probably want to maximize the value in their home, right? And I say, Jason, it sounds like that you're desperate. You're definitely not a desperate seller. I respect that. MMFI, right? And I know that you're a intelligent seller that wants to make sure you maximize the equity in your home. Am I hearing you correctly? And of course they're going to say yes, right? So in order to maximize the equity, has anybody taken the time to share with you how these three different strategies have performed in Pensacola, right? And when you say, has anyone taken the time? Most of the time they're going to say what? No, nobody's taken the time, right? And then you share with them the three, which of these three would you like to be in, right? Then the next logical step is to move on. Does anybody ever get somebody saying, hey, I only want to do a 3-month listing?
Yeah.
Or a shorter listing? Does anybody ever get that objection?
Yep.
And who said that? Jason. All right, Jason, you're front and center today. So if somebody says, hey, you know what, Jason, we don't really know each other yet. I know Mary and Paul referred you to me, but we would really feel more comfortable doing only a 3-month listing.
Okay.
How would you address that?
Well, I think that one of the first couple of questions that I ask when I start the presentation is going back to your MMFI. Why am I here? What is your overall goal? And go through that process. And then the next question is, let's assume that we're able to sell the house in a week. That would be the ultimate goal. What happens next? And I've already kind of dissected the questions of what their ultimate goal is. So when they come back and say, well, I only want to do a 3-month listing, is your goal because we haven't established enough of a trust for the plan that I have to execute it in the time that it's going to take to sell? Or is your goal to ultimately sell it in the least amount of time for the top dollar that we want to get for your home? I'm already setting them up to say, like, 3 months may not be enough. And when you take it off the market and you restart the sequence, whether it's with me or anyone else, you're hurting yourself twice, because I've already asked the questions up front. So a lot of times I'm already asking the questions. So when that comes up, I already know where I'm going to take them.
Right. So I might suggest because I don't walk in your shoes, Jason. I might suggest a different strategic direction, which would be, hey, Jason, I understand that you only want to list the property for 90 days to make sure you hire the right agent. May I suggest it's a really big decision? Maybe you want to ask some more questions before you hire the agent. Because if you listed a property for 90 days and you weren't satisfied with the agent, you switched agents. What do you think consumers might think about that? Do you think a consumer might think that? Do you think a consumer might think that the first agent knew that there was something wrong with the house and withdrew, and that you listed with somebody else to hide something? Now, Jason, I know that you would never do that. So look, at whether it's me or somebody else, may I suggest that you find somebody that you're completely comfortable with, that has your best interest, that's aligned with you, and that you feel comfortable going into the appropriate listing agreement, so it doesn't look like you were trying to conceal something by switching agents. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? So Dada, you're a master lister. Do you ever get that question? I want to do a shorter listing.
All the time, a lot, often. Yeah, I'm more of a direct person when it comes to that objection. I say no. I don't take listings less than 6 months at least. You're sending me to the desert with half the water that I would need. So I do need the 6 months. Now, do I want to stay 6 months at the market? Absolutely not. I don't get paid until we're successfully closed. So I am as motivated as you are to get it off the market. And then I go back to my 2-week, I have a 2-week blitz marketing campaign. I go back to that and I show my stats, and then usually it's handled.
Okay.
I just don't take I won't take a listing less than 6 months.
Yeah. And I think, when I'm listening to what you say, Donna, it makes all the sense in the world, right? But it's explaining, why you're not going to be able to achieve their goal, right? Instead of putting it into their perspective. And, certainly, your experience and results are outstanding, but, I want to give you more tools to be, to have more resources to talk to difficult
That's
people.
why I'm here, Rob.
All right. Well, there you go. So
I think something that Sam said earlier, and I think that kind of what Donna said as well. I think part of the negotiation handling, you have to really understand who's across the table, whether that's with another agent or the seller or potentially buyer. They say that with luxury clients with affluent,
That's right.
sellers, they literally sometimes need to be told no. Sometimes they are the ones that they need to know someone else is in control, because they're always in control. They want that person that has that personality. There's what are the architects, there's like 3 architects to a negotiation. There's 5 different negotiation styles. And if you understand those, if you understand who's across the table, the answer might slightly change.
And maybe, Jason, to bring parity, you might say, hey, Jason, would you be offended if at the end of our conversation that I decided we weren't a good fit?
No.
Like that puts doubt into their, that politely puts a little bit of doubt into their mind, right?
But that also plays into the what is it, the accommodator? It's the one that we're asking more questions because we're trying to find a neutral ground where if somebody's more analytical or assertive, sometimes they want someone to meet that energy as well, which is why I like Donna's answer.
I love you, Jason.
No, and that's true. I think the difference comes up.
Right. I mean, they're looking for somebody that has confidence and can move this big asset. So you got to present yourself that way. If they think that they can walk over you, then they think that other agents, other buyers will walk over you. So, you put your stance. Trust me, I don't, never arrogant, but we do take a very direct and grounded stance when it comes to clients. So whether, especially like you said, the affluent ones, they're tired of being the boss all the time, right? They just want to just tell me what to do. I hear that often from my clients. Just tell me what you need me to do. And I just love it because they give me full control.
Let me show you show you what I can do. Does this work? And a lot of times,
right. Yeah. And it's like, it's up to you. What do you want me to do? I love it when clients say that. And then when it comes to the question of closing and sometimes, asking the right questions, Rob, sometimes I don't necessarily ask the question directly because I work on assumption of consent. I already know I got the listing. So I'm working towards when are we going to be on the market? When can I take photos? When can I stage? When can you get the house clean? So my questions are leading to that because I already assumed the consent that I got the listing.
Okay. I'm going to shift a little bit here. I'm going to put out a phrase. Does anybody know what situational awareness means?
Yes.
Reading the room, understanding what's happening in that moment for that person in front of you.
And this is a tremendously valuable skill in the business that we're in, right? If you're in the military or war, situational awareness is the difference between life and death. And in our business, it's the difference between success and failure, right? It's understanding what's going on. And as I'm listening to what's going on here, I just want to read, my ChatGPT definition. Situational awareness is the ability to perceive what's happening around you, comma, understand what it means, comma, and anticipate what happens next. It's a 3-level mental process that supports clear, timely, and accurate decision-making in a dynamic environment. That's all of what we're in, right? We're in a very dynamic environment. And the dynamic environment can be multi-leveled, right? Have you ever been there with, 2 owners that are almost on a different page?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you need to have techniques to basically build tremendous rapport and do MMFI, right? And here's an interesting tool that you should make a mental note or maybe even write it down, right? Most houses have something that a homeowner did that they're proud of, right? Many cases, yes. So like if somebody put on a new sunroom or they redid the kitchen, hey Donna, did you guys redo the kitchen with resale in mind or just to make the house eminently more livable while you were here? All right. And you're on mute.
Yes.
So was it resale or to make it more livable?
Yeah, well, to make it more livable for me initially, but now that we're selling, I think that helps that we did that.
And Donna, whose idea was that? Was that yours or your spouse's?
It's always my idea.
Okay, so then I would go and I'd say, Abe, you have no idea what a good decision Donna made in doing this because it made your house more enjoyable and it really enhanced the resale value. So number one, I just took that situation. I made both Donna and her spouse or significant other feel very important, right? Because I complimented you and I complimented, the spouse. So that, my friend, is situational awareness and figuring out how to use your authentic ability to basically change the trajectory of a conversation, right? Because if they feel better, are they more likely to basically close themselves and want to work with us? Absolutely. All right. That's the case of, I'm in the trenches with one of our agents, and I have two polar opposite spouses. When they say opposites attract, I have this attorney. We're not listing it today. We're going to interview 3 people. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. And the wife is all emotional about, her mom's house, and the situational awareness was there. It's just, hey, Jennifer, do you have a spare key? And puts it on the ring, gives me the key. And the husband goes, Jennifer, are you giving them the listing? She goes, I guess I am. Right? That's quintessential situational awareness. You can't do it like a chart saying that this happens, you do this, because if you're thinking about it, you're already lost, right? Like if you're thinking about what you need to do when you're in the trenches of warfare, you're probably shot dead already. You need to have 3 steps ahead. Hey, Jason, if we're not happy with your services, can we just cancel at any time?
I have if I'm not doing it for you, not only will I let you cancel, I'll help you find another agent. I do that consistently on my listing.
So if somebody asks you that, your answer would be absolutely. If you're not happy, I'll return the listing back to you.
Yeah.
I would probably say that, but I'd say, Jason, would it be fair that if there's anything where I'm not meeting your expectation, that you at least give me a clue and let me know that beforehand so that I can have an opportunity to fix it. And then if you decide at your own discretion that I'm not meeting the bar, that I'll be glad to give it back to you.
And I also assume that, because part of my thing is how we communicate, things that I'm going to update you on a weekly basis. The other thing I did right before this mastermind was update all my sellers. Here's what we're seeing in the market. Here's what all your showings are. You have any questions? And they know that. So the hope is that if there's something that they want to address, that we have that in that conversation at least once a week. And so I'm perfectly fine. And if I'm not doing it for them, I don't want them to feel like they're trapped, which is why I only take 6 or 7 month listings.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the experienced man who we have to read his lips, Robert. So if somebody says, hey, this is the 3rd property we're listing with you, Robert, and we love you, but can you give us a discount?
No, we don't do discounts here. Are there any other questions?
You couldn't even say discount.
You got an allergy to it.
No,
allergic.
I think we have to have a firm as data talks. I mean, we have to have a firm number and make sure these people. And again, certainly, if it's come up with me before, a lot of times I would say, well, let me ask you this: do you feel like I can sell your home? And most of the time they'll say yes. And I'll say, well, do you feel like I can be strong with those buyers that are going to come in here and try to, short sell you? And what you would say, obviously, would be do you feel like having an agent that's going to stand up for your needs? Is that something you'd be happy with? And don't you agree that would be to your benefit to have a strong agent negotiating on your behalf?
Would it also? I think that you've probably done that before, and you say it very eloquently. But I might even add to that, or give somebody a different resource and say, hey, Robert, are you mostly concerned about paying the lowest fee or netting the highest price?
As far as what my response would be. I mean, if I'm the seller, I'm certainly going to say, well, gee, I'd like to get the most money in my pocket. So, I mean, if I'm the seller, I mean, obviously, if I'm an agent referring to that, I mean, you're going to, basically try to reiterate to them the fact that, have an agent that is strong in a negotiation skills with many years experience is going to get the job done for you.
So here's an extra arrow in your quiver, I think is the phrase. If you all go and look up your list to sale price and compare it to the peer group, either in your local market or the entire MLS, and you can generally find that data publicly available through like the market reports. I might say, Robert, I can understand your request to ask for a discount, but if you're concerned about netting the highest price, from the last year, the last 2 years, all the homes I've sold in Gainesville, I'm averaging 4.2% higher sales price than my peer group. So rather than give you a 1% discount on the fee, would it be acceptable if I was able to continue my performance and sell for 4.2% higher than my peers? And do you think that would be an effect if that is in fact true? Do you think that would be an effective way of overcoming that?
Sure. Yeah. Statistics work well in those particular cases.
Right. And I find that most of us don't know those statistics, and I'm just trying to give you another tool. And you can lie about statistics, but I would strongly discourage you from doing that because it's a slippery slope. But you can cherry pick stats. Okay. And at one point in time, we had the #1 agent in Somerset County in New Jersey, but it happened to be from the period of April 19th to May 17th, 18th of the following year. It was only this one particular window, but he was the #1 with a little asterisk there. Okay, so you can take your own statistics and you can promote them as long as they're legitimate. Okay. And I think it's compelling. Sam, real quick, because we have 3 minutes left. What's your
Yeah, no, just real quick. I was going to give my peers some entertainment. You were making me laugh with a discount point because you reminded me of that one customer I had, our client that told me they'll pay me my commission by giving me their washer and dryer. Thought I'll give you guys some funny thing to laugh at with the discount point.
Yeah. You can't feed your family with a washer and dryer. How about this one here? Do you ever get a seller that says, hey, we need to get, Robert, I know that all those numbers are interesting, but we need to get 550,000 in order to move to our next home. Has anybody gotten that before? I'm sure we all have, right? Does anybody have a really good response to that?
Well, I think the question is how closer do your numbers show that you can get those numbers?
Latest.
And is that a net or is that a purchase price?
Most of the time, it's a fairly ignorant question, right? Or ignorant statement. Would you agree? Right? And if I said, hey, if you knew you got full market value and you were $5,000 less or $10,000 more, would you feel comfortable proceeding? Right? If you knew you didn't leave any money on the table and you got full value for your home and had it fully exposed to the market with a competent negotiator, whether it was 5,000 less or 10,000 more, would you be comfortable proceeding? What do you think most people would say to that? Robert, you've been in the market a long time. Would that be an acceptable answer to you?
Yeah, that would probably work. But like Jason says, you kind of have to do that qualification process. Unfortunately, so many times, do they have a $500,000 mortgage on the place, and do they have 2 or 3 other liens, and it's difficult. I mean, you almost have to do that investigation to say, well, gee, we'll do our very best to get you that 550 or whatever that number is. Unfortunately, as most agents, we don't control what the market puts out at us. I'll do my very best. If I were to agree to do my very best to get you that money in your pocket, would you agree to sign my contract tonight?
So if you say, would you agree to sign my contract tonight? I'm just gonna, for those without as many years experience, contract's intimidating. And the question would applies that, we need to think about it, right? Maybe, could we agree to work together? if you knew that I was getting like something to that effect, Robert, for those who aren't, as experienced as us, might be a better way without creating anxiety with the word contract.
Rob, I use the words documents that authorize me to market the property.
Right.
That's how I describe a listing agreement.
Yeah, can we execute the documents that give me permission to start marketing your property? That is a lot less intimidating than a contract.
Or just, are you comfortable using DocuSign or whatever it is that you're using, .loop, e-signature sessions?
So I put on here, I had a couple agents. I put on here a script that I worked with my partner. My partner is called ChatGPT. We worked on this together. All right. And
robot.
And but ChatGPT had a few hallucinations, Jason. So I had to coach Chat. Okay. But I've had a lot of people that have had questions about this particular instance, these private listing networks, right? And how do we address those competitive forces that are in our market, right? And hey, Jason, with my house being $1.5 million, I'm very tempted to go on with this X company that has a private listing network. We could test the market before we accumulate days on market and see if I can get a really good number that satisfies me. Do you guys offer that over at Remax? And my approach, without thinking about it, would be, hey, I appreciate you bringing that up. Some brokerages, including whatever that one is, and a few others, are promoting private listing networks now. Let me give you my clearest, most honest way to look at this as it affects your outcome. Okay, a private listing network means that your home is shown to a limited group of buyers before it reaches the full market. In my opinion, anytime exposure is limited, leverage is limited, and leverage is what drives up the price. Right. So in other words, I would know exactly how I'm going to answer these questions. And for me as a brokerage owner, these private networks are very tempting because we can sell more of our own listings. But is it good for the consumer? Does anybody think it's really good for the consumer?
Less exposure, no.
I really don't. I think it's good for the brokerage for multiple reasons. They get to double end their listings, right? And then all the agents that hate them, that want access to those private listings, they say, oh, I could have sold that one if I knew about it. So maybe I'm going to go over to the devil. Right. So I don't think it serves a client, and I'm very well positioned and prepared to address those questions in a very, very effective way. So I have this at the back of today's, if you click on the link from the email, you have all of these, my goal isn't just to sell your home. Anyone can sell your home. My objective is to sell your home at the highest possible price and maximize your equity in a way that delivers a strong experience where you feel comfortable referring myself and my team in the future. Right. So the goal is not just to get the commission check and abandon, right? Collect and run away. There's a couple of them now. If you were to sell a valuable piece of art, would you want to show it to one group, or would you want to expose it to the entire world? There are just so many things that every objection, in my opinion, is an opportunity to create separation between you and the competition, and to highlight the benefits of hiring somebody with our resume and our integrity and our experience, right? If you look at objections as possible disqualifiers, it weighs on you differently than if you look at objections as opportunities to demonstrate value and build upon future business. Because if people don't know what we do and we just get the job done, are we going to get the amount of referrals we deserve? No, right? But if they understand what we've done and they can compare it to other people's experiences and know that we outperform what others have done, they're going to feel positive about the experience. And it's like when you go to a really good restaurant, right? You want to tell your friends and neighbors, hey, have you tried this restaurant? It was an amazing experience, right? They're going to say, hey, you need to work with someone. You need to work with Donna. It was an amazing experience. Not only did she sell our house quickly, but I know that we got more than we expected because of her marketing, because of her exposure, her negotiating skills, right? We're 5 minutes over. Any last questions before we wrap? Did anybody get one tangible thing that you're going to take away from today?
Yes, too many. More than one.
All right. What's one thing you got, Karma?
Okay, you know what? I like too many of them. The 3 months listing. I like this objection, and I like the objection about having. If you have a piece of art, would you like to have one person or one company to look for it, or as many as you can? And also having to be prepared before you go to the listing. Have to be prepared with the objection. What is the action? Have the answer in your mind to be answered immediately.
Yeah.
But that's too many things today. Thank you.
Right.
Thank
You
you.
only pay, Karma, you only get billed for the first one. All the rest are free.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
And Nicole, did you get something? You've heard me tons of times.
I have. Something you said, you were like, I just put it in the chat. If you don't like the answer, like ask a better question.
Okay, there you go. And Robert, can we read your lips for the last one?
Yeah, I always got the phone ringing, so I always put myself on mute. But no, a lot of good points, and like I say, it's important to hear the things over and over again because there's always something you're going to pick up, and you never know. Tomorrow morning we might be at an appointment and have a similar objection hit our face, and we'll at least have something to say. So good point, Rob. Good deal.
We look forward to having the objections define us and separate us from the competition. We'll leave it with that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You
Bye-bye.
too, sir.